Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. Phillips' Big Comfy Beanbag here. Today we're going to be talking about Greek mythological monsters. And speaking of monsters, if you hear some growling in the background, I apologize. My dog thinks it's playtime. So first up we have the Cyclops. A pluralization of that is called the Cyclopes. Kind of strange thing, strange fact to know. It's a giant one-eyed monster who eats people. There are a lot of different Greek stories as minor characters. I've talked to a couple of you about how they were friends with Hephaestus when he went to live in that volcano after he fell down from Mount Olympus. The Odyssey, as a freshman, you'll really get involved in a pretty famous Cyclops. Next up, we have this ridiculous creature covered in eyes here, okay? This is based on one of the stories of Greek mythology where Hera is once again running after Zeus, trying to catch him in the act of cheating on her. And instead of being able to catch him like usual, she just thinks that it's happening. So what she does is Zeus turns the girl that he's seeing on the side into a cow, okay? And then he was going to turn her back when Hera's gone, but Hera's like, it's not going to be that easy. So she has this monster right here guard the cow, who is a woman, and Hermes goes and slays it for Zeus. And so Hera tributes this monster by putting the eyes all over the peacock, which is one of her symbols, to kind of give representation of that. So that's Argus. Sorry, I didn't say that the first, did I? We got a chimera here, and don't worry if you said this one wrong. I called it a chimera for about 10 years, I think, before I got that right. This is a combination of a lion, a snake, and a goat, and there are different versions where like they have 3 heads, or they have this snake is a tail that comes over top with its head on that. But in most straightforward fashion, we have this image of the original Greek chimera here in the upper corner. It's rumored to be the parents of both the Sphinx and the Nemean lion as well. Next up, we have centaur. I'm sure most of you guys know these. Harry Potter, right? We have centaurs showing up. Body of a horse, then you got upper half of the man. There are a couple of different centaurs that are pretty famous. I think the most famous is a character that's shown in Percy Jackson. So that's an actual, he's an actual god and a centaur as well. So we've got a couple of, like I said, there are different tribes of this species as well. So they show up as minor characters in a lot of stories. We also have Cerberus, which again, very famous one, alluded to in Harry Potter with Fluffy, right? Big dog with 2 heads, but this one has 3. He is considered the original Hound of Hell, even though he's the guarder of the underworlds. Common misconception is that he's supposed to keep the souls in from escaping back to the world, but actually Cerberus is there to keep, he is there to keep the souls in and not keep people out. He's not like a guard dog, because you go in to the underworld, chances are you're not coming out anyways. So his job is not actually to guard people from coming in, but to keep the souls in and not allow them to leave. Medusa is another pretty famous one, another Percy Jackson show up there. She has all these snakes for hair, and you guys read this one in your Perseus warm-up, so I'm not going to go too deep into that, but she's a Gorgon, and she was just a normal nymph until Poseidon had his way with her without permission. Obviously a very terrible thing, but because there was an affair that happened and no one could blame Poseidon because he's this powerful god, Athena gets him back by changing her into this monster, the Gorgon. We also have griffins, body of a lion, and then you have the upper wings, head, and usually the talons of an eagle. Griffins are only alluded to. They're not talked about a ton. They're known for guarding gold in mountains. That's pretty much it for them. Next up, we got a very famous one that we'll dig into a little bit more. We'll dig into a little bit more at some point if we haven't already. And this is the many-headed sea serpent. Anybody know? Hydra, right? It's got all these heads, and every time you cut off one of its head, two grow in that one's place. So very dangerous work doing that. Our famous hero, Hercules, or Heracles, as he's known in the Greek version, he ends up slaying it by burning all of the stumps of the heads after he cuts them off so they can't grow back, and cauterizing them. We also have these wonderful creatures right here. These are known as the hounds of Zeus, or harpies. They are women and birds, and there are different depictions in different stories. Sometimes they're just the head of a woman and the rest, oh hello Sherlock, but the rest is a bird. They're also more with the one below it there, where they're more woman and less bird. Minotaur, unless you're British and you pronounce it Minotaur. There's only actually one Minotaur. So we see, I think it's Lion Waits in the Wardrobe, there's all of these Minotaurs involved in this great battle. In Greek mythology, there's actually only ever one Minotaur. He's in a labyrinth. We touched on it a little bit in one of your warm-ups where Icarus has to fly away because his father's the one who created the labyrinth that the Minotaur is in to chase around anyone who's placed in this very dangerous and deathly of mazes. Not a unicorn, okay? Let's make that clear. Not a unicorn. Pegasus. It is actually a immortal beast. It's a winged horse, carries the thunderbolt of Zeus. Perseus rides the Pegasus to achieve some of his greater feats, along with the winged sandals. Phoenix. So once again, back to Harry Potter. We've probably seen this somewhere or another. Phoenix is a bird that is basically made of fire, and it's immortal. It can't die because when it reaches its final time, when it's supposed to die, it turns to ashes and rebirths itself in its ashes. Hence the reborn, and that's kind of how we use it in modern language as well. Like rose like a phoenix means you were almost dead and you came all the way back, right? Oh yeah. Okay, so here's one of my personal favorites because this one has gotten so mixed up as we've moved forward in time. So these are sirens, okay? Sirens were actually sea nymphs, but they were the combination of birds and women. Nowadays, there's a show, they show up in Pirates of the Caribbean, they're always mermaids, just because they're considered sea nymphs, but that's not actually originally how they're depicted. They were depicted as bird women, but they would have these beautiful voices and they would sing on the shore and try to get sailors to crash their ships into rocks. The Sphinx, and obviously this is different than the Egyptian Sphinx. This Sphinx has a head of a woman, wings of an eagle, body of a lion, sometimes it had a serpent's tail. The Sphinx was known for its riddles, really crazy story that you could read later on in high school. It's called Oedipus Rex, has the Sphinx in it. The Sphinx was more known in the Greek mythology for being the parent of several of the more crazy and wild creatures that we have talked about or will talk about. The Titans, we've gone over pretty thoroughly. I'm not going to really cover it more than that. They're just the first generation of gods. Remember, they are gods. They're just the first generation. They're overthrown. They no longer hold the same power. Here's a couple of bonuses for you. Excuse me, a couple of bonuses for you. This is the basilisk, which I really like to bring up because Harry Potter twists this one again. The original version of the basilisk is actually part snake, part rooster, and it had this really interesting birth where it could only do it if a snake laid an egg and a chicken sat on top of it to hatch it. And they were very hard to kill because if they look at you, you turn to stone. Manticore is another one that I think is really cool just because it's so weird looking. Tail of a scorpion, body of a lion, head of a man, really poisonous, and they had this skin Like the skin is usually a very deep red color. I call it cinnabar. And it's just this mean creature who just shows up to be this scary threat. And then a satyr, and I find this one most important because of the god Pan, which is available for someone to choose if you like. And Pan is actually a god, but he's also goes around with the fauns and the satyrs. And they're these creatures of fertility. They play the pan flute, which makes sense, right? Based on the god I just told you about. And most popularly depicted version has the lower half of a goat and top half of a man. And I think there's the assistant in Hercules, the Disney movie, he's a satyr. And then unicorn. And they actually, the only reason I bring up the unicorn is because these, Sherlock, get out of the way.
Excuse you.
Thank you. They thought that unicorns were real. They just thought that they lived in India, and that's why they didn't see them. So, move your butt, dude. All right, lay down. Lay down. Thank you. Good job. All right. And the final one is this Hecaton Charis, the creature we talked about in the story of how Greek myth kind of got started. These monsters were sons, or they were half brothers and sisters to the Titans, and they actually, because they were treated so poorly by the Titans when they were in charge, they joined Zeus in the fight against them, and then eventually got the job of being basically the jailers and security guards, keeping the Titans locked away inside Tartarus, the Hell Pit, and that's their job, is to just keep them there. And this is one of the few images I could find because it's such a ridiculous explanation with the 50 heads, 100 hands. Like, how does that even fit in one person, right? So just a very interesting, weird little extra bonus there. And that's all I've got for you. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. I think the Greek myth monsters are so cool. So if you needed any extra notes to add on to your own, or you needed to correct something that was incorrect, please do that before you finish up, because you will need those moving forward, just so you have that knowledge in the background. All right, guys, thanks for talking monsters with me. I will talk to you very soon. Bye.